Hey guys, it's Mia here, and today you finally get to see what I look like. Well, at least in the live videos. In the gaming videos, I don't have a webcam yet, and I don't have a way to hook my phone up to my computer to edit it that way. Because for some reason, my phone doesn't like to communicate with my computer, even with the cord. So, you just get me for the reading vlogs. Now, I know I'm not my signature color, but I love this shirt, so let's get right on into this. Now for what I want to talk about today. The Son of Neptune, the second book in the Heroes of Olympus series. Now, unlike in the first book, where it centered around Piper, Jason, and Leo, this one centers around Percy from the Parent series, Hazel, and Frank. Now, if you're like me and you've read the Parent series, The Olympians, or seen the movie, The Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, then you already know Percy's whole deal. You already know his backstory, his motivations, who he is as a character, and why he ended up at Camp Half-Blood. So, that for me, anytime he talked about losing his memories, because he's just like Jason. Anytime he talks about losing his memories, it's just a slog for me because I already know what happens. Now, what happened was Percy and Jason actually switched camps. Percy went from Camp Half-Blood to Camp Jupiter, the Roman camp. Jason went from the Roman camp to the Greek camp, effectively switching the two strongest heroes of each camp to each other's camp. So that was their way of trying to get the Greek and Roman demigods to work together, because they all need to work together to beat the big bad guy, which I'll talk about in a second. Now, speaking of Percy's backstory and how it was a slog for me, let's talk about my favorite of the character backstories and character perspectives. My favorite in this book, and I do go into light spoilers, so if you don't want to hear light spoilers, then bye. See you after you've read the book. And if you've read the book, then cool, we're all good. Now, assuming everyone who doesn't want spoilers is gone, and if you want to spoil yourself, that's up to you, but hi. So, Hazel has actually been dead for quite a long time, but yet she is still walking. And we find out that Death has been captured by our big bad guy in the book. How was they able to capture Death? I don't know, but they pulled it off. And now all the enemies that were stuck in Hades are unable to die. Each time they get killed, they just start reforming right as soon as they die, which is how the book opens. It opens with Percy being chased, not having any memory of who he is, how he got there, or his abilities, being chased by Gorgons, or Medusa and Medusa's sisters, as that's how I remember them. And please don't hate me if I don't say any names right. I'm trying my best. But, so there's that whole pickle where the demigods can die, but the enemies can't die. So that makes things difficult. So Hazel is one of those that have been dead. I'm not going to tell you why she died. Read it if you haven't. If you read it, you already know. I just don't want to go into major spoilers for those who have not read this. So Hazel's been dead, and she was trapped in Hades for the reason that she died. It was considered bad, I guess, in their world. So she got brought back by another minor character in this, which was also in the Parent series. So it's kind of nice, well, not nice, it's kind of sad to see her not only living again in the way that she wants to and living her life to the fullest, but also knowing that it's inevitable that she may or may not, once again, I'm not going to tell you for major spoiler reasons, but she may or may not die again. That's a little better, less glare on my glasses. So, she's my favorite backstory, just because of how she was already dead before, and now she's back, and just dealing with the whole might die again thing, and just her whole backstory about living in a different time, and the way she handles the modern world. I really like that story. And she's a league above Piper, who just came off like a cocky little spoiled rich girl, even though she didn't act spoiled. She kind of was ashamed that her dad was a movie star, which is a dumb thing to be ashamed about, but whatever. She's a league above Piper, in my opinion, in both her her strength and her backstory and just all that fun stuff. Hazel is definitely a great female lead for me. And then there's her love interest, which is so cute, Frank. He is a mix of Chinese, American, and Greek. There might be a couple others, I just can't think of them off the top of my head, but he's a bit of a mixed bag. And he is also part of Camp Jupiter. Camp Jupiter, I said that right. I almost wanted to say Camp Neptune, because that's son of Neptune, but I was like, wait, I was right. Anyway, so he's also a newbie to Camp Jupiter, like Percy is a newbie to Camp Jupiter, even though everybody clearly realizes that he's way too skilled to be a newbie. But they all think that he somehow survived as a demigod for so long on his own. They just don't realize that he came from Camp Half-Blood, even though they call him a Greasus, which means Greek. And you already know that they swapped as like a Romeo and Juliet situation, trying to get both sides to cooperate. So, Hazel is definitely my favorite. Then, I really think that since these aren't romance-centered, I think that Hazel and Frank have really good chemistry, and it is so cute and so sad because you want them to get together because their backstory and their love is not rushed, but you also know that there might be this inevitability that Hazel will die yet again. And also that they might not survive the quest. Not saying, because I don't want to give major spoilers just in case people are still here. So, I love this. I mean, it's not as good as this, that was the movie, not as good as this one for me, and that's just because, once again, I already know about Percy, so it slogs it down a bit every time he goes through, oh, I can't remember anything. It's like, but we do. We know who you are. You're this badass hero from this other series. But, yeah. So, that's the good guys. The main bad guy, even though she was introduced to me in this one, scares the absolute hell out of me. And she is not even awake yet. She is basically sleepwalking. And she is still terrifying. I mean, just with her giants alone, she is able to capture death. Just imagine what happens when the earth goddess, demon, whatever she is, finally wakes up. It's gonna be a bad time for our heroes. And she's just very well done as a villain. She just gives a real sense of danger to her. She just gives a real sense of urgency. And she's not even awake yet. So, also, once again, this is another book like the first one that switches perspectives. But again, like I said in my review for the first one, Riordan manages to keep these perspectives very well balanced and very easy to follow unlike another book that I've ranted about that I am not going to bring up again because I was so disappointed in that book. Okay, rant about that over. And I also like how he doesn't switch perspectives every chapter. One chapter will be Percy, maybe the next chapter will be Percy. Then we'll switch to Hazel. It's not every chapter is a switch in perspective, which is another reason I find him very easy to follow. Because me as a reader, you notice there's no annotations, no notes beside me. I cannot take notes and I cannot annotate when I read. If you can, good, great, do you. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that I can't because as a reader, I'm one of those that has to zone into the movie and turn the book into a movie in my head. Or else I'm too busy minded not to do that. And I just start thinking, what's for breakfast today? Ooh, that looks good. Oh, there's a dirty spot on my wall. I gotta clean it. Just stuff like that starts going through my mind. And I just end up reading the same 3 pages over again. Or same 3 lines. So that's why I don't take notes and I don't annotate, because I'm zoned into the story, turning it into a movie. But if you can, good, great, just please don't ask me to. So, all in all, I think that I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5 on my Goodreads, just because the fact that I do not like how Percy was handled in this one. I mean, he's still himself, but like I said, if you've already read the books of the first series or seen the movie at least, then you already have a good idea of Percy's backstory and who he is. So it's just a slog. So that's the only complaint I have about this book. Other than that, it was phenomenally good. And if you're someone that likes Greek myths and you somehow haven't heard of Riordan, then I recommend you pick up both the parent series, even though admittedly it's been a long time since I've read them myself, and this series. I mean, they won't disappoint you, and they're just enjoyable. And one thing I like about Rick Riordan a lot is how much research he actually does for his books. Even his spin-off books. He does so much research for all these Greek myths that he talks about in the books. And that just shows that he's not going to pull a 100 scale book down to a 25 scale book. He's going to give it his all every single time because he cares about what he's writing. And that genuinely shows in his knowledge and research of these Greek myths. And it makes it all the more enjoyable when you can tell that the author themselves had a great time writing this and put so much work into it. I mean, every book takes work, but the amount of research he had to do for this series is phenomenal. And that just, for me, makes him an author above the rest, because he puts that much care into not just the main books, but his spin-offs as well. So, I highly recommend Rick Riordan because he is an all-around enjoyable read, especially if you're someone like me that likes the Greek myths and stuff like that. So, I hope you enjoyed seeing my face. I'm sorry I'm so pale. I burn instead of tan and get nothing to show for it. So, as always, if you guys enjoyed, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell down below to stay up to date on future videos. You might see me in my signature color next time. Who knows? I don't. Bye, guys.